After reconnecting the chip after the bent pin incident, straightened all that out, and the unit worked fine, I took it into work and left it running on the bench for, well, it was only running for 10 minutes, and it became unresponsive on the front panel. Not total lockup, but when you were entering certain commands and things, it was coming up with errors. The error message was coming up here, not the E number, but the error when there's something out of range. And I was trying to set the period and things like that, and it was just becoming sort of erratic and irrational. And when you were entering in certain things, it was going to disable and lock out and things like that. So I brought it back into the workshop, took the cover off it and had a look inside, and couldn't see anything obvious. Put it back on and switched it on. Just checked also that 5 volts was good, which it was perfectly in spec. Left it again for 10-15 minutes, did the same thing. So I took the cover off, checked the ripple. The ripple in the power supply was perfect, very low ripple. 5 volts was 5.15, and it was clearly something to do with the microprocessor side of it this time, because it was sort of a control problem. The unit was making output, but it was erratic. So what I did then was I removed the 4 chips on the left hand side, which are like the data and the EPROMs and things like that. Just popped them partially out of their sockets, soaked them in contact cleaner, and reseated those, along with the central processor that runs sort of the length of the board here, and the GPIB controller, which I also just popped out the unit. Didn't remove them totally from the socket. I just popped them out sort of halfway out of their pins, so they're not fully seated. Sprayed some contact cleaner in them and reseated them. Popped it back in, and that's been on now. This unit's been on for 2 hours, and it's fine and working okay. You can see with there's the output of the scope there. I thought initially it probably needed a bit of calibration, but since it's warmed up, it's been absolutely fine. So let's say so it's 100 microsecond period. This delay, for people who wonder what this delay does, I initially thought it was the sort of like the off time. It's not. What it is a delay between the trigger output signal going high and the output of the unit going high, and the best performance is 65 nanoseconds. Okay, we've got a double pulse here, and that specifies a double pulse delay. You can see there's an error come up here because it's beyond its range at the moment, but it's, the double pulse is larger than the pulse width. This is our width or duty cycle, and I tend to use it mainly on duty cycle, as you can see, and that's giving us a 50-50 mark space ratio. Leading edge rise time, trailing edge rise time, only relevant on these 2 settings here. High level and low level, so that's your voltage above the 0 volt reference, and that's your voltage below the 0 volt reference. And you've got various trigger inputs here, and this is obviously our GPIB address information, which I've basically disabled at the moment. And we've got triggers for going positive or negative. You've got a manual trigger where you can actually burst the unit into a manual trigger. So if you go if you go into gate and press manual. If I press manual now and hold it down, you can see I can just burst the signal onto the unit. And we've got trig, and I think that just gives 1 pulse. Yeah, and the scope's not actually always catching everything, but every now and then you'll see. There, you can see that. So that time-based turn. So the time-based down, you should see it. Let's try again. There you go. So that's sort of like a manual, just one pulse only in that mode, in the trig mode. Gate basically allows it through all that. So you're basically, when you press the manual, you're holding the gate open, and you've closed the gate. And the reason why that's still showing on it, there you go, because I've got a slow time base on the scope. There's various different trigger modes here. E wide, I don't know what that is. Normal is just a normal sort of free running trigger from the internal generating the unit. E burst, I think that I'm not entirely sure what that does. I'm not going to ever use that, I doubt. Different control routines. High LC is the high output voltage mode, which was the problem with the other unit. where it wouldn't allow me to go into high voltage mode because it puts the amplifiers to their limit. I think basically gives you the biggest DC swing on the output. So yeah, it basically works okay. The backup recovery memory system is working okay. The store and recall systems works perfectly well. That's you press the store and recall and you got UN2, and that's basically either you want to store and recall from that memory slot. You can select that from this button here, and to either recall you press the recall button, which is the second in vernier, or store in the right hand vernier. So if I want to recall 8, press that and it's recalled 8. You got complementary, which basically all that does is it flips the image up the other way. So if you've got a best way to do is to explain it is to show you, I suppose. So let's go period of 1 millisecond and a duty cycle of 40, and let's put the voltage up a bit so you can see it on the scope a bit easier. Bring the scope speed up. So there we go, we got a 40-60 mark space ratio there, or pulse width if you want to call it that. And if I do in complementary, it will basically flip it upside down. There you go. So that's what that does. The limit button there, basically I think you can define a limit where it can't exceed before it actually locks itself out. And there's also a set function there, which I must admit at the moment don't understand what that does. But they say you have to do it after certain things. But I'm not sure totally what that does, and I'm sure someone will tell me. Well, I suppose I could always read the instructions, but nah, I don't think I'll probably bother with that. So there you go. Now a number of people have said, oh, we wouldn't mind one of these. Now the company that I bought this from was a company based in the UK, and they're selling all this sort of redundant government stock. And I bought this through a company called iBidder. So that's all one word, ibidder.com. Now the listings for these units tend to come up around the middle of the month and run until I think it's the first Wednesday of the following month. So they run for about 2 weeks, and then what they call it's called a tender bidder. It doesn't mean you're gentle with it. It means that you actually place a bid, and that's, you can't see if anyone else has bid. You can't see what the price is of the unit. Basically, it says there's a minimum starting wage price. So, for example, if this was £10, you bid, I don't know, £20-30 on it. You can increase your bid, and you can actually, funny enough, reduce your bid, but you can't see what anyone else's bid is. And at the end of the day, if you bid £50 for it, and the starting bid's £10, and it's, that's no one else's bid, you pay the full £50. You pay to your maximum bid, which is not like eBay. Obviously you bid up to the highest bidder. Your opponent bidded plus another sort of like £2 or whatever it is, depending on the value of the item. So it's quite an interesting sort of situation to be in, because you sort of place a bid and then you don't hear anything about it. They give you a confirmation you've placed the bid, and then you just wait until the sort of like the third of the Wednesday of the month, and then you get this email saying you won. If you don't get an email, it means you haven't won and you've been unsuccessful. Because I bid for 2 items actually. This was one of them, and the other one was a Marconi power meter, and it had all the heads with it and everything. And I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to use one of those, but I bid some money on it. I was only bid 30 quid on it. I never heard anything. I knew it was worth a lot more than that, but I thought I was just going to take a punt on it, really. So that's iBidder, and that's bidding. Basically, iBidder, all they do is they tender for other auction sites, and the auction site I bought this from was a company called Ramco, and they're up in I think they're up in the Midlands somewhere, and that's also where I bought the Tektronix analog scope from. So so far, I've been quite happy with the way they deal with you. You pay the final bill. You get the final price. You got a £6 auction bill basically, plus the VAT, and then you got the plus VAT on. So you need to remember this, and also they will ship to you. So it's all a bit archaic. It's not as sort of smooth and slick as eBay. You pay your price. They send you a bill for the unit, the VAT, and the bill for the bidder. You know, the £6 I think it is for bidding. And you pay that price, and then all you have to do is you have to send them an email saying, please ship it to this address, and which they do, and then they've charged me £10 for both of these. They charge me £10 for the HP and the Tektronix scope, so it's sort of like a generic £10 more or less, which I'm quite happy about, because otherwise it means going and picking the unit up, which I'm not that keen on doing. So yeah, that's recommended if you want to buy something like this. Obviously in the UK it's fine, probably in Ireland and places like that you're okay, even in the EU. But I don't know about people in sort of like New Zealand. I know some of my views in New Zealand and in the States, it's possibly not viable. The shipping is going to go through the roof as soon as that happens. But that's that. Working fine. I think I might actually use this unit instead of the one I've got in the workshop. It's in a slightly better condition, and I think it's probably had a less work done with it. And as you can see, it's cleaned up really nicely. It was covered in calibration stickers and anti-tamper stickers and safety stickers and God knows what stickers all over it, but it's cleaned up really nicely, and very pleased with it. Anyway, that's the final on this. Thanks for watching.